What's up guys, I'm BTC. The Lunar New Year event will be arriving very soon, so today I'm going to go over when the event is likely going to start, what sort of new content we can expect, and also make my legendary skin predictions. Let's start with the dates for the event. The Lunar New Year event is unique in that the time frame for the event changes every single year. This is of course due to the fact that the real world Lunar New Year shifts around every year. On the left-hand side is the time frame for the Overwatch events, and on the right side is the actual date of the Lunar New Year. And if you compare these and look at what Blizzard has been doing, it seems like they're in the habit of starting the event about a week before the actual date of the Lunar New Year. This year, that falls on January 25th, so it seems very likely that this year's event will start sometime between January 16th and the 23rd. The event will likely run until the 3rd or 4th week of February. So what about new content? The first Lunar New Year brought Capture the Flag into Overwatch, and since then there have been new maps and also some changes to the rules. The majority of the maps for Capture the Flag are existing control maps that have been modified. Some of them, like Nepal, had big changes where they made entirely different spawn room locations, and other maps like Oasis had almost no changes, and Blizzard just kind of plopped down some flags and said, okay, you can play CTF on this map. With all of the work going into Overwatch 2, I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to get a brand new map that is specifically for Capture the Flag. And all of the control maps have already been modified to allow for Capture the Flag. The only exception, I believe, is the mecha base on Busan. So it's possible that they could modify that one remaining section that was missing. So really, what could they change? It's possible that they could use one of the other maps for Capture the Flag, but that gets into some balance issues because if you were to take something like Hanamura or Route 66, they're not symmetrical. Yeah, they could always heavily modify one of those existing maps to make it more symmetrical, but I don't know if they want to spend time doing that. Another thing to consider is that we really haven't gotten a new map for quite a while, and it's entirely possible that Blizzard could have a new control map that they want to release, and they could initially include it with the Lunar New Year event as a Capture the Flag map, and then put it on the PTR for more thorough testing as a true control map before it gets added to Quick Play and Competitive. Another possibility is that they could release one of the new push game mode maps and use that for Capture the Flag, because just like the control maps, the ones that used for push game mode are also symmetrical. They have to be by the nature of the game mode. And I really do think that Blizzard wants to use push for this year's Overwatch League. There are some issues with the Overwatch League, and I don't want to go too much into it here, but the thing is, they can use whatever help they could get in order to kind of help drive up more attention and more interest in the Overwatch League, and adding the new push game mode could certainly do that. So it's possible that they could add one of the push maps into the Lunar New Year event and just have it as one of the Capture the Flag, and you could then have it more tested thoroughly on the PTR just like with the other maps before they actually add it into the game. After all, what we saw at BlizzCon is they already are currently working on a bunch of maps for that push game mode. The ones that they showed off was Toronto, Gothenburg, Rio de Janeiro, Monte Carlo, and what appeared to be an unnamed map in India, but that one looked like it was still really early in development, so I don't know if that one would actually be added. Of those maps, we've seen the most of Toronto, and it was even playable at BlizzCon. But even though there isn't really any connection to Toronto to the Lunar New Year, simply because it seems to be one of the most finished of those maps, it's possible that could be selected. However, both Monte Carlo and Rio de Janeiro have fairly large Lunar New Year celebrations in real life. And if they're going to take one of the maps and then decorate it for the Lunar New Year and add it into the event, then it seems that one of those two maps might be a more likely candidate. Or they could just wait until Overwatch 2 for the push maps, but I don't know, that just doesn't seem like a really great idea. Moving on, let's talk about the legendary skins. Each year, there is a theme with the real-world Lunar New Year. It was Rooster, then Dog, then Pig, and this time it's Year of the Rat. The skins that Blizzard creates for the event don't particularly follow the animal associated with that particular Lunar New Year, but instead Blizzard has the tendency to take stories from Asian myth and legend to build character skins around that. It doesn't mean that they just completely ignore it, but they tend to use the stories a lot more. The first year was based on the story Coming to the West, which included the characters of San Zhang and Wukong. The second year was based on the four symbols: the South Vermilion Bird, the White Tiger of the West, the Azura Dragon of the East, and the Black Tortoise of the North. And then last year, the skins were based on the story Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It seems very likely that Blizzard will continue this trend, but what stories might they use this year? Some of the big ones that still remain are Pangu, which talks about the creation of the yin and the yang, and ultimately the creation of the world. Another one is about the monster Nian, which attacked villages, but was eventually driven away by loud noises, drums, and fireworks, which coincidentally is one of the reasons why those things are present in the Lunar New Year celebrations. Another possibility is the legend of the White Snake. This is about a mythical white snake that is capable of turning into a woman, and she falls in love with a man and marries him. She is eventually tricked by someone else into revealing her true form, and her husband dies. She then travels to the dangerous Mount Imi and steals a magical herb to bring her dead husband back to life. And when he comes back to life, he says that he still loves her and that he still wants to stay with her, and they end up having a child. And then there's actually a lot more that goes on, and it continues the story. Now, another one is the Jade Rabbit and the Moon. Mei already has a Chang'e skin, but I could see them trying to expand on this a little bit more. So those are just a couple of the potential stories that Blizzard could use. But now let's talk about which characters are most likely to get those legendary skins. And you guys know that I have a very systematic methodology of figuring out who I think is going to get them. I usually get most correct. For the last event, Winter Wonderland, I got all of the legendaries and one of the epics, so not too bad. Right away, I think we can exclude Reinhardt and Zenyatta from getting legendaries. They already have 2 each from the Lunar New Year, and the second one that they got was just last year. Blizzard also has been adding 3 epics for every recent event because they like doing those weekly challenge things. So it helps to kind of narrow down a little bit more, but even with all of that stuff, there are still quite a few characters that have never gotten a skin from the Lunar New Year, and there's also several characters that have not gotten a legendary for over a year. So while I will be using my normal method, I'm not super confident with these picks, because just there's a lot of characters that could potentially get stuff. But having said all that, let's get to them. Starting with the legendary skins, first up is Baptiste. He only has 1 legendary skin so far, and that was added way back in last year's archive event, so it seems that he's due for another one. Also add to that the fact that he doesn't have any skins from the Lunar New Year at all. It kind of makes it more likely. Next up is Junkrat. He got a few epics this year, but no legendaries. Plus, come on, it's the Year of the Rat. A lot of people were pretty annoyed that Roadhog didn't get anything for Year of the Pig, and since Reaper got the Rat King for the last event, Winter Wonderland, it kind of seems like a reasonable guess to say that Junkrat will get something for Year of the Rat. Lucio hasn't gotten any event legendary in over a year. He did get something with the Overwatch League, but that was also quite a while ago. And Lucio also has never gotten any kind of a skin for the Lunar New Year event. Next is Symmetra, who is kind of in the same situation as Lucio. She hasn't gotten an event legendary or epic in over a year, although she did get a special one with BlizzCon. I was considering not taking Symmetra, but then I remembered that Genji got both a Summer Games legendary and the BlizzCon legendary as well, so it just kind of feels like Symmetra's due for something extra. The last legendary is Hammond. He did get something in the Summer Games, and he also got an epic during the Archive event, but he still doesn't have a whole lot of stuff just overall. but I specifically chose Hammond for the possibility of Blizzard using the Jade Rabbit story. As I mentioned, there's a story with the Jade Rabbit and the moon, and I figured that they could very easily make Hammond very rabbit-like, and they could have him kind of look like that, and then have the mech resemble the moon. Also, it kind of makes sense for Hammond specifically because, I mean, he comes from the Horizon Lunar Colony on the moon, and he's kind of rabbit-like already, so it's just something that I couldn't pass up including. Picking the epics was tough. Some of the characters that haven't been getting epics lately in the recent events for those weekly challenges already have epics for previous Lunar New Year events, Bastion and Brigitte for example. And while Blizzard has doubled up on legendary skins, they don't really do that with epics, so I'm not really sure. I think there's a decent chance that Sigma could possibly get an epic, even though he just got a legendary, but ultimately I ended up going with Diva, Roadhog, and Sombra. Although I was really considering giving Sombra a legendary pick because she hasn't gotten a legendary in over a year as well. Yeah, she got the Demon Hunter skin that was originally at BlizzCon, and she got that for last Halloween, but again, that was already in the game for over a year, you know, provided you had gotten it with the previous year's BlizzCon. So I'm not really sure about Sombra. She could get either an epic or a legendary, but since I had to pick one, I just went with epic. So those are all of my picks, and as always, I made a selection sheet for you guys to use as well. I will post it in my Discord server and also on my Twitter. You can make your selections and then you can post your own and see how many you get right. Or if you don't want to do that, then you can just leave a comment down below with the characters that you think will get the skins. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get notified. You can get some cool gear, join my Discord server, or follow me on social media with the links down in the description below. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, and remember, always blame the controller because it's never your fault.